director of the Riley County Historical Museum. Cheryl has been the director since 1988. Cheryl has a Master of Arts and a Master of Arts in History from Kansas State University. She currently serves on the Board of Directors of the Kansas State Historical Society, the Partner Advisory Board of the Freedoms Frontier National Heritage Area, and the Governor's Council on Travel and Tourism. She grew up in Wichita, but had 3 sets of great-grandparents who live in Riley County. I'm excited to hear her speak about the 100-year anniversary of the Riley County Historical Museum. Please welcome Cheryl Collins.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I always look forward to coming to Rotary Club and seeing so many friends, and sometimes some of them long time friends. And I want to mention that I know that some of you may have appointments or work, and if you have to get up and run out, I'll understand if I get too long-winded. First, I want to say congratulations to the Manhattan Rotary Club in celebrating your centennial this year. That's a terrific achievement. And if you have trouble hearing me, start waving, and I'll remember to get closer to the microphone. The Riley County Historical Society celebrated its 100th in 2014. Soon after the society was formed in 1914, the members decided that they all had objects and documents of historical value that should be preserved, and they began discussing a museum. In 1915, the society received permission from the Manhattan City Council to build the Pioneer Log Cabin in City Park. And I'm not sure, Betty, if your grandfather's in this picture or not. They built a black walnut cabin in 1915 and dedicated it as their first museum in October 1960. The cabin was open Sunday afternoons 2 to 5 year-round, using the 2 fireplaces for heat, a thought that makes me shudder. The Pioneer Log Cabin is still open today, 100 years later, Sunday afternoons 2 to 5, but now only during the better weather months of April through October. So how many of you have visited technical difficulties? That one's blinking on and off.
You're slow at work.
So how many of you visited the Pioneer Log Cabin? Gosh, this is a great group. Well, if you've not, the season's open, so Sunday afternoon, 2 to 5 in City Park. I hope you'll come by. There's one bulky screen. This is what I always imagined in the back in the day of slides, dropping my slide tray and having to say, imagine this.
Just go ahead, Cheryl.
Make a move over here.
That's right.
A great variety of objects were donated for exhibit for the cabin. Chairs, clocks, Civil War relics, photographs, books, farm tools, an armadillo, I assume just the shell, clothing, all sorts of household goods, really everything you could imagine. The society did not have a formal collections policy until about 1971. Now we focus on the objects that directly tell the story of Riley County. But to begin with, any object that had a history was a possible acquisition. So this end can at least see the pictures. Today, the Riley County Historical Museum administers a collection of 85,000 objects, as well as the Charleston Taylor Research Archives and the Fay and Dora Seton Library of over 4,500 books and monographs, 10,800 cubic feet of manuscripts and archives, including a Manhattan Rotary collection, and 27,000 photographic negatives and images. We're very grateful to the literally thousands who have donated objects and records through the years and have left a lasting legacy. And I'm sure that you recognize that Fay Seaton, the man for whom our library is named, was a Manhattan Rotarian. By the 1950s, the cabin was packed full, and the loft was full, and there were hooks on the ceiling holding items, and every possible inch was used. And then came a wonderful opportunity. The city of Manhattan hoped for many years to build a new city hall, but could not get a bond issue passed. After World War II, the city came up with the bright idea of promising space to different groups. Those groups then would advocate for a new city hall. A Peace Memorial Auditorium was promised in recognition of World War II veterans and the fallen, and museum space was promised to the Riley County Historical Society. Using this strategy, in 1946, a bond was passed for the new auditorium and city hall. The new city hall was not dedicated until 1955. They had to wait for funds to accumulate, and with post-war materials scarcity and price escalation, they had to come up with additional money, so that took time. In any event, between the time the bond passed and the building was built, the city also changed from a mayor-commission form of government to our current council form. Could it be that old promises were forgotten between bond and build? Because when Winifred Slag, who was president of the Riley County Historical Society 1955 to 57, and then was director of the Riley County Historical Society Museum beginning in 1958, asked about the museum space, they showed her a closet. Well, Winifred Slag was a resourceful and imaginative woman. She was not about to settle for a closet. Lucille Wolfe, secretary of the society, who was married to Max Wolfe, charter member of Manhattan Rotary, described how Mrs. Slag outlined her plans for the museum like this, quote, "On an agreed hour, I met Mrs. Slag at some door or other, well to the east inside the new municipal building. After hurried greetings, she escorted me down some stairway into an abyss of utter darkness. Pausing to switch on a rather feeble flashlight, she took me by the hand to begin a tour of the cavernous expanse beneath the totally unfamiliar building. Piles of construction debris still lay on the uneven dirt floor, but grasping my hand firmly, she led me over boards, around massive piles of rubble, occasionally turning a corner and detouring around massive cement supporting columns. No one above ground knew where we were. I had avoided my aged mother's questions and was now having a few qualms about it. I wondered silently whether or not, if something happened to Winifred, I would be able to attract the attention of the police, probably overhead, by tapping out a distress signal on the ever-present pipes above. Finally, the darkness lifted somewhat, to about the degree which the poet referred to as the encircling gloom, and she announced, "Well, here we are. What do you think of it?" Well, since I hailed from a state where never is heard a discouraging word, I replied, "It's really spacious." And she said, "Yes, and see, it has windows." Well, believe me, I had already seen them. Trying to look on the bright side, I said, "And it will always be warm." Then I asked the horrid question, which always takes the joy out of any situation. "What will it cost?" She replied that she'd made a little sketch and a few estimates and thought that it could be done for about $7,000. Well, about that time I was serving the society as secretary and quickly estimated the number of members and the individual membership fees paid and figured it might be accomplished in about 70 years. So I made the time-honored reply, "Why don't you appoint a committee?" To be truthful, I was thinking of the unreliability of an overworked flashlight battery and all the steps to be retraced before we saw the light of day once more. So the society decided to hand dig the basement of the new Manhattan City Hall, pour cement floors, and build their new museum space there in the basement. They dedicated the new museum in 1957 and happily lived there until 1977. So, did any of you visit the basement museum and City Hall? Yeah. This is a good group. Slagg was the first paid director of the Riley County Historical Museum. Under Winifred Slagg's direction, the museum began innovative education programs, an ambitious exhibit schedule, and partnered with a vast array of local organizations and individuals to promote local history and serve the community. Winifred Slagg retired as director of the Riley County Historical Museum in 1971. She continued to research history and was publishing historical articles well into her 90s. She died in 1991 at the age of 102. Jean Dallas became the museum director in 1971. By the 1970s, the museum had outgrown its space in the basement of Manhattan City Hall. The basement space also had some drawbacks. It was not handicapped accessible, and the temperature and humidity controls, critical to preserving artifacts, left much to be desired. The overhead pipes described by Mrs. Wolfe during her tour of the space were a water event hazard, and the city had grown over time, and they really needed the space. So the society began looking at ways they might move into a bigger and more suitable building. In 1969, Mary Payne gave the Goodnow House to the state of Kansas, and a local group raised money for its renovation. Goodnow House State Historic Site was opened to the public in 1973. At the time Mrs. Payne gave Goodnow House to the state, her husband Loyal sold the land west of the Goodnow House to Riley County as a future home for the Riley County Historical Museum. The land east of Goodnow House was sold to the city of Manhattan for a park, preserving that open space that gives Goodnow House its context. In 1971, the society was given by Mr. and Mrs. John Meisner what we today call the Hartford House, one of the prefabricated houses that came on the steamboat Hartford in 1855, and was installed on the county land close to Goodnow House. Hartford House was originally located in the 200 block of Colorado Street. The Manhattan Rotary Club and Rotarian Howard Fick helped move the Hartford House to the museum grounds. So have any of you visited Goodnow House or Hartford House? Thanks for doing that. And we'll be glad to give you a tour anytime the museum's open, or Saturday and Sundays 2 to 5 if you haven't visited. So, land secured by Riley County, the society began raising money for a new museum. The opportunity to build a modern museum building presented itself with the American Bicentennial. The bicentennial of the independence of the United States in 1976 focused a lot of attention on history. Here, of course, we do not have history that goes back that far, so the attention got focused on local history. Lowell Jack was the chair of the local Bicentennial Commission and helped organize, in cooperation with the Riley County Historical Society, bicentennial commemorations and fundraising. The money that was raised after commemoration expenses were paid went to building the new museum. The Riley County Historical Society also raised money and received the largest bequest they'd ever received to that point, around $50,000 from the William and Ruth Richards Glenn estate. Other very generous gifts were also made. And this was also the good old days, when the federal government actually gave money back to counties in the form of revenue sharing. Been a long time since that's happened. Riley County agreed to provide revenue sharing money toward building the museum. The county commissioners who built the museum were Wallace Kidd, D.E. Parker, and Ivan Sand. In 1974, in order to build and organize the new museum, the Riley County Commission established and appointed a 9-member board of trustees. The members of the first board of trustees were Marie Bonebrake, Vern Forrester, Richard Haynes, Lowell Jack, Vinton Puckett, Russell Reitz, Robert Sloan, Homer Sokolosky, and J. Robert Wilson. And of course, Vern Forrester, Richard Haynes, J. Robert Wilson, and Vinton Puckett were all Manhattan Rotarians. The Riley County Commission hired Jean Dallas as the museum's first full-time director, and all the society's museum employees became county employees, and the museum became a department of county government. The new Riley County Historical Museum at 2309 Claflin Road was dedicated October 24th, 1976, and it opened to the public in the early 1977. During Gene Dallas's tenure as director of the museum, a standard museum system of collections management was instituted, award-winning education programs and exhibits were presented, and a number of significant state and national grants funded a variety of programs. During Gene's years, the museum received commendations from the American Association for State and Local History and the Kansas Museums Association, as well as other honors. During Gene's tenure, the Riley County Historical Society added the Wolf House Historic Site and the Rocky Ford School to the collection. The Wolf House Historic Site was a gift from Mrs. Lucille Wolf and her son-in-law, Whitney Bradley, and includes the Wolf House Museum, the Mansfield House, an 1868 stone house just north of the Wolf House, now rented for income, the Moses House, an 1870s frame house built by Miss Flora Moses and used as a subscription school just east of the Wolf House, and the Wolf Photography Studio, the 1901 photography studio built by Max and his father Henry Wolf directly east of the Wolf House. The Moses House and studio are currently used for storage, but the Society is working toward developing them as part of the Wolf House Museum. The Rocky Ford School, which is at Barnes Road and Tuttle Creek Boulevard, is a 1903 one-room schoolhouse on the National Register and was given to the Society by USD 383. So have any of you visited the Wolf House Museum? Great. It's open Saturdays and Sunday 2 to 5 and it's free, and we invite you to visit. In fact, we would love to host a special event for Manhattan Rotary Club at the Wolf House, the home of one of Manhattan Rotary's charter members, if you would like to do that sometime. And how many of you visited the Rocky Ford School? It's open by appointment and special events, and we'd be pleased to arrange a tour there as well. It's best in good weather though, because it doesn't have heating or cooling, but we do have an authentic outhouse.
Good to know.
Yes, it can be very good to know. In 1986, Gene Dallas oversaw an addition to the museum that doubled its size to around 12,000 square feet. The Riley County Historical Society funded this addition through the generosity of many donors. Gene Dallas retired at the end of 1987, and I became the third Riley County Historical Museum Director in 1988. The first week I was on the job, a man called me and said, "When do you want your jail?" And I, of course, said, "Jail? What jail?" When Tuttle Creek Reservoir was built in 1959, the Randolph Jail was given to the Riley County Historical Society and stored on a farm in northern Riley County. It was now time to secure the jail, so with a donation in memory of Barrett Lindstrom, it was moved to the museum grounds where it is today. During my tenure, we also installed the Bala Bell on the museum grounds. The Bala Bell was originally located at Bala, the Riley County Welsh settlement, and at the Bala Presbyterian Church. The bell was moved after the church was removed. In 1996, the Riley County Historical Museum, the Kansas State Historical Society, and the Riley County Historical Society became partners in the operation of Goodnow House State Historic Site. Today, the Riley County Historical Museum offers a number of outreach exhibits in the Riley County Courthouse, the Riley County Office Building, as well as temporary exhibits in various locations. The Riley County Historical Museum was a founding member of AHA, the Arts and Humanities Association of Manhattan, and we are a partner in Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area. We work with many community organizations and institutions such as the Flint Hills Discovery Center, K-State and Fort Riley Museums, and our local libraries and schools on programs, exhibits, and other projects. The Riley County Historical Society and Museum continues to conduct a wide range of educational programs for children and adults. We sponsor quarterly dinner meetings, guided tours, kid camps, lecture series, walking, driving, and trolley tours, among lots of other things. We've continued to work to preserve our historic properties replacing roofs, heating and cooling systems, painting, and all the other ways one has to keep up buildings. The properties have undergone significant restoration in multiple phases with the help of the Friends of the Wolf House, the Friends of the Rocky Ford School, the Manhattan Fund Caroline Pine Charitable Foundation, and the Commerce Bank Kemper Foundation, among many other generous donors. The Society and Museum also continues to publish a local history publishing program, and our most recent publication is Digging K-State by Dr. Patricia O'Brien. Over the last 100 years, many people and organizations, including the Manhattan Rotary Club, have supported the Riley County Historical Society and Museum and its work to preserve, present, and promote Riley County history. We're truly grateful to the many donors that have helped. We have relied on the talent and effort of literally thousands of volunteers to collect, preserve, and present Riley County history. Our volunteers have ranged in age from kindergarten to some who are almost as old as the museum. There is no listing of the jobs that they perform. They're too numerous and varied. Many of our volunteers are Rotary Club members or relatives, and we're truly grateful to them. In fact, I know that we have some members of the board of directors and trustees in the room today, and I thank them very much. Our volunteers also include college interns. Since beginning an internship program for college credit in 1980, the museum has had 149 volunteer interns from 6 colleges and universities across the country and from a variety of curriculums. We look forward to our next 100 years. Local history is important. Local history connects citizens to their place, and that connection gives them a reason to care about and value their place. Understanding and valuing local history helps build a positive and connected community for both visitors and residents. The Riley County Historical Museum looks to expand and improve our programs and invent new ways to serve the needs of future citizens. Preserving our history is reflected through objects, records, and historic buildings. We will continue to promote the past and recognize its importance in the present and in the future. We're grateful to the citizens of Riley County who have supported and valued Riley County history through their museum through the last 100 years. And I'm very proud of the accomplishments of the museum and grateful to have the opportunity to work at the best museum in Kansas with the best museum staff in Kansas. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I invite you to visit the museum and see our centennial exhibit, which features over 100 objects from the collection of 85,000. So thank you very much. Sure.
Do we have any questions that Cheryl might be able to answer? I had one, and I heard it on the radio about digital publishing. Do you want to say something about that?
Well, we've published 11 local history publications. Our most recent one, Digging K-State, was published by Rotarian Randy Martin. And we believe we always will have a place for print publications. But we're looking at print on demand for some of the upcoming ones, so we can put our toe in the water with that as well. Because some of our publications that need frequent updating, I think that's going to be a great way to go. And then, of course, ebooks. I guess even historical societies have to enter the digital world.
Thank you, Cheryl. And in honor of you speaking today,